What's up, everybody? Welcome to S.W.A.T MMA. We're smoking weed and talking mixed martial arts. This is episode number 90. My name is Jarrod. I am here with my buddy Paul.
What up?
And we are coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. On today's episode, we're going to be talking all about the results of the BKFC Knucklemania. We're going to take a look ahead to the UFC 258 Welterweight Championship between Usman and Burns. We've got some news from Nate Diaz and a few fight announcements as well. Before we get started with all that, grab your weed, fire it up, and let's get down with the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
This week, we are smoking on some garlic, mushroom, and onion cookies, aka GMO cookies, aka garlic cookies. We had these once or twice in the past. It's a good strain.
This fucking strain that I got this time, I feel like it was some primo GMO though for sure. Like the smell on it was just, it's fucking there. You know, like the name was on point for this fucking strain.
Yeah, this is named for the unique terpene profile that gives it that odor. It's Chem Dog crossed with Girl Scout cookies. Chem Dog has been around forever. It's a base in a lot of my favorite strains like Sour Diesel, OG Kush. Origins are unknown though, but it's got that real chemically diesel smell that you typically don't care for. But when it's mixed with the Girl Scout cookies, we get that very unique
Softens
garlic, mushroom, and onion scent, and a little bit of that flavor as well. But it's definitely more of a
I can tell you,
a scent.
I can taste that Chem Dog, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that Girl Scout cookies balances it.
And the Girl Scout cookies, if people don't remember, is OG Kush crossed with Durban Poison. So we've got the Chem Dog and the OG Kush again as well. And Durban Poison is one of my all-time favorite strains.
Favorites.
It's a super rarity in the fact that it's a pure sativa. It originates from the African port city of Durban, hence the name. And it's harder and harder to find, at least here in Vegas. I never find it on the streets.
The only company I see that makes one is those Dizzy Wright company.
Yeah.
That Dizzy Wright has, the rapper. He makes that Dizzy. It's like Dizzy Lotto, and then I think it's called Dizzy Poison or something, but it's Durban Poison just with his name, you know.
In the first year of having legal weed here, I was finding Durban Poison in a few places. Remedy was growing it for a while, but frankly, maybe they've gotten better, but when they first started, their weed was terrible. So I couldn't fuck with it as much as I like the strain. You know, a lot of these places out here, even right now, from what I understand, are still doing that fucking quick drying.
Yeah, no,
which
I
is
like
just
that.
is stupid corporate influence into
Well,
weed,
it's
trying
mass
to
production.
force a crop to market as fast as possible, with
Yeah.
people not understanding that you can't dry your crop in 7 days. It's going to taste like shit.
It's gonna taste like booty.
Like, it'll look nice and pretty, and it's going to taste like hay.
Well, that's the problem with dispensaries. It's one way or another. You know, it's like either they do that 7-day fucking quick shit, or they sell you some weed that was grown fucking year and a half ago.
Right, you pull it out of the little wrapper and
it's
you
fucking,
squeeze
you
it, and
grab
it
it and it
crumbles
just turns to
dust.
dust, and you're like, okay, all right.
A little bit of smoke comes up. You start trying not to inhale it.
Yeah.
That's
Like, that's ultimately, like, a lot. Like, that's why I like to stick with, like, companies I trust. Like, I don't really smoke a lot of different carts lately. Like, only carts I've been smoking lately are those Aero Pros. Because, you know,
AeroPro
that's that
makes good.
fucking,
Yeah.
that live resin. And it's like, it's made with, what's it called, CO2. So it's, like, it's a lot less, like,
it's a CO2 extracted.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's more clean.
THC distillate. And yeah, I
It's a
don't
little
really
bit more
fuck
pricey,
with cartridges, but I did dip back into Aero Pros a little bit. I like their custom battery too. It has a little vibration when you inhale, which is kind of cool. I don't know why, but
Well,
like it.
I mean, ultimately, people always go like, you know, is this, how do I hit this? You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's like, they're a little bit expensive, but when we're talking about like pens with how the market has been in the last few years, like with all the fakes and the weird like pesticides and shit like that even have been found in some of like the major companies and have had class action lawsuits and shit like that.
People on the street selling the lookalikes and cutting it with the vitamin E, which turns into poison when it's heated up that nobody knew.
Yep, fucking people's lungs up and shit.
Man.
Giving people popcorn lung.
I just quit all of those, but whatever.
Like I said,
each his own.
I cut them all out except the Aero Pros. Those are the only ones I smoke now.
I would hit that. Like if you busted out an Aero Pro pen right now, I would hit it.
Yeah.
If someone tried to sell me a pen of something else, I'd pass.
That's my thing is like I don't like getting any pens from. I don't want to out anybody, but you don't
want to get pens off the street. I mean, let's be honest. Like, street weed is still a thing.
Yeah, it's always gonna be
a thriving business.
It's always gonna be because weed is one of those.
And there's
things
cartridges and everything else available. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mess with any cartridges off the street either.
Sketch. Well, because there's always those backdoor websites where they can buy packaging that looks like the real thing, and then you run into weird situations like you were talking about where those dudes were putting vitamin E in that shit. I think that was on the East Coast, but like it was like sketch.
Yeah, and they're selling it as a legit company's,
product and fucking damning the company's name ultimately. You know what I mean?
Is Brass Knuckles still sold? Like they went through some trouble with that.
They went through some trouble, but I've seen them at a few different places.
Okay. And then there was a few that were getting knocked off a lot. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that scene anymore. But
yeah, I don't do that shit no more. But
dude, this GMO cookies is hitting though.
Yeah.
I'm digging this right here. It's a good weed. Just got some classic pipes today.
Go with the old
we
pipes.
We do have some THC crystals in the PAX 3 if we want to hit that as well.
Cool.
So we hope you're smoking on something as delicious as we are. And let's dive into some combat sports. Paul, it's an interesting weekend, man. We had two big events here since our last show, which is the BKFC Knucklemania.
Yeah.
And we had the UFC Fight Night with Rovereem and Volkov. Watched both of them. Let's start with BKFC, which, interestingly enough, I was all set to pay the $40 for, and then the day of it, I was like, man, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to read up on the internet. I just thought it was too much money. I've enjoyed all the BKFC events. And then I found out on the app you got it free anyway. So I subscribed to their little $4 a month app.
Well, that's what they
included it.
They switched it up. It's not $4 a month anymore. It was $40 for the year.
And you get the pay-per-view free, right?
You get the free pay-per-view.
I'm guessing their software, their technology didn't allow them to differentiate between people who already paid and new subscribers as far as getting that pay-per-view for free. And they decided to give it to those of us that have been loyal subscribers for the last 2 months. Yeah. Anyways,
But, they're still so young as a company. I think that was, ultimately a tactic for them as well to gain a following and keep it.
You know it's a good move, man.
Yeah,
I think 40 is a little high for that product, though.
Well, that's kind of how Flow Wrestling is, too. Like, I've told you about Flow Wrestling. They always have the fucking best matches, and it's $120 for the year, but they don't break it down. It's $10 a month. You have to pay $120 up front. And it's like, fuck, man, I don't want to pay $120 up front. Like,
no. BKFC, I think, clocks in at a really good value at the $19.99. I've paid that before, and I think even up to $25, $24.99 on a pay-per-view. I think that's you pay that and you argue about what you see. I can't see it. Every event I've seen, every event I've seen has been entertaining. If I paid $25 for any of them, I'd be like, all right, cool.
Well, even to use as an example, this last weekend also there was that Rough and Rowdy pay-per-view for fucking Barstool Sports where they
Jose.
And they put on, a whole bunch of whole bunch of fucking, put a whole bunch of fights on against guys in their company that want to fight each other. And that shit was $20, and I guarantee you they sold a whole lot of pay-per-views for that too.
Well, they paid
$20 is
Jose Canseco $1 million for that 13-second dive he took.
Well, and he would have got paid more too because he had a show and win bonus, and he didn't win, obviously. But hey, my boy Billy Football beat his ass. He took a dive, but ultimately Billy Football started punching it. He clocked him a few times, and he just looked like he didn't want no more.
It wasn't like he fell from just nothing.
Yeah.
He got hit a few times.
So there was a couple different combat sport. That's what's funny to me is I hate to be like this right now, but outside of that Corey Sandhagen knee, BKFC and fucking Barstool had better pay-per-views.
Dude,
this
they had way
weekend.
better. That's what I was leading
And
into.
you had to pay for those.
When you put those shit side by side, I had way more fun watching that BKFC event than I had during that UFC event. Dude, I was reading a fucking ebook on my phone half the time.
I went and played Paul.
Like
during the pay-per-view.
an ebook that wasn't going
fucking
anywhere.
shit,
Like it's not like it was due back that night.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to do that. I like fights. Good Lord.
You know what it is, though?
It's terrible.
You know what a big thing is? It is both, like, the thing is with the whole BKFC one being more interesting, I think a big part of it was the production value alongside, like, the UFC. Without,
Way better, yeah. It was exciting, man. UFC was stale.
Well, here's the thing. It's a letdown, too, when you watch the UFC for 2 weeks, have fans, and there be electricity in the arena. And, like, those two events were fucking electric because people were getting clocked and the oohs and the ahs and the cheers and the people.
Yes.
It all fucking made for a better experience overall. Whereas, like, when you look at the UFC, these fight nights, like we were talking about a little bit before the show, ultimately feels just like an endless row of, like an endless grind of going through fights. Don't get me wrong. A lot of the fights have been great. There's been some great fights with no crowds and all that jazz. But it's just like the energy is just different when you have crowds.
Yes, and the UFC is the same week in and week out of the constant drone of commentators who won't shut the fuck up.
Well, and I
Fights that go the distance, silent fucking arenas where you just hear coaches, and then they say the same thing. They ask the same questions of every fighter. Who do you want to see next?
Yeah.
What surprised you in this fight?
Yeah.
Were you expecting him to do that? Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the three fucking questions.
Here's the thing, though. To that point, I can't blame them for that because ultimately you have to know that their producers are in their ear and they're saying, this is a very quiet arena. We need some fillers.
Yeah, but let's compare that to the BKFC, which, okay, they only had only two announcers. Yeah. They did bring in a guest for a couple fights, but which to me was an improvement. Chris Lytle, one of them. The other, Chris Lytle's Raw, but whatever. Yeah. It's their 14th pay-per-view, 15th, whatever it is. Yeah. Look, their fighters had intros. They had a crowd there. They had both VIP seating, and then they had people in the actual arena.
Yeah.
They had kind of like Bellator used to do. They had a big screen. They had smoke. They had music. They had guys walking out. They had a ramp. They had people yelling and screaming when they're coming out. They had people wearing fucking funky clothes, just making fucking excitement. And people were yelling and screaming about the fights. The announcers were then able to shut up for once and just let them talk a little or let them fight a little bit without this incessant need of, I don't know, story time. But overall, it was more exciting for me. But let's shift into some of the fights that were good, though. Because we could go on and on about that.
Is, like, I feel bad for those guys in the UFC that are doing that shit, though. Because, like, ultimately they're forcing them to do that. Like, you know what I mean?
It's not the fighters' fault. I mean, it's their fault for some of these fights being boring. But it's not their fault that the situation and the production is a bore. And that the UFC uses the same graphics and has them in the same clothes.
Well, it might as well just be the Ultimate Fighter.
And has the same music.
That's what it feels like. You're watching the Ultimate Fighter.
Yes, like with no change-ups at all. I don't know if the UFC realizes that everything that they repeat when there's no crowd, it's really obvious when you use the same intro music for every goddamn fight. I don't mean the fighter's intro. I mean the UFC's background music when they're showing you the stats on screen. And
they're repeating the same commentary and just fill it with filler stories during the fights.
Yeah. It's the same, you know, here's the heartwarming fighter story. Here's the Daniel Cormier training fucking story. Here's the nonsense they're going to yap about while they miss actual fighting that's going on. Like BKFC broke down, like they had Chris Lytle come on with a fighter and then explain things like this is why this is different than boxing. This is what you have to do to be successful. This is what's allowed. This is what's not. UFC is way more complicated and they do nothing for a new viewer. Like both John Anik and DC in this last event were talking about how somebody, I don't remember which fight because they all blend together, was going for an omoplata. Yeah. And they never once explained what an omoplata is. So if I'm a new viewer tuning in, you might as well be speaking fucking Chinese because they're like, what the hell are they talking about?
Well, remember back in the day when Goldie was in there and around the Ultimate Fighter days, when before the main card and before like the main fights, they used to explain the scoring and the rules. Remember, they'd be like, "There's 3 5-minute rounds. There's freaking this, there's that," and you know what I'm saying? Like they used to do that, not necessarily like broken all the way down, and that's fine because like a little bit to your point of like. They just say things and don't explain it, and it's harder for the new viewer. I feel like also MMA is such like a not a niche sport because it's become a lot more, out in the open. But I feel like it's one of those things where even people who are watching the fights, they know the words and the names of like the positions, but ultimately they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like they'll be like, "Oh, look, he's going for an omoplata," but you think. Even me, I don't fucking know how to execute an omoplata, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of these people, although they feel like a lot of people are educated on MMA, like, they're not at the same time. Like, so I feel like it's hard for them. It'd make more sense for now what we were talking about before, how there's no crowd and shit, for them to break the fight down more than it would be.
Well, it's not like they don't have any time to be explaining what's happening. They don't have to make everything story time. You don't have to talk about the struggle outside the cage. Daniel Cormier doesn't have to share his umpteenth fucking
weird
memory about some fucking bullshit. I mean,
yeah, true.
I don't know, but for me, I love MMA. Don't get me wrong, but I just can't be honest, dude. UFC's getting a little stale, and they need to do something to change that.
I think the pandemic's a big reason why.
When is this Reebok deal over? Is it the end of this year? We're getting Venom in?
No, I think August of this year.
Because I'm over that crap too. Does that mean they're going to let some sponsors back in here? Because they're not letting shoes. Venom doesn't make shoes.
I feel like casual wear is where you're going to see the sponsorships, but I don't know. I think Venom makes everything except shoes.
Because I no longer buy that Dana White's argument about making the UFC look more professional by not having the sponsors on there. Okay, I get that when you did this 7 years ago because you were trying to sell the company.
Yeah.
And now what? So. Well, every other combat sport on ESPN, they have sponsors, but the UFC doesn't.
Well, and then also, if you look at pro sports as a whole, that's become a whole lot more prevalent in basketball, football, fucking.
I mean, come on.
Go to a sport like soccer. Soccer, the whole fucking the whole jersey is a fucking advertisement. You know what I mean?
The jerseys you buy as a fan in the stores have the exact same advertisements on them.
Yeah.
Like they turn you into a billboard when you wear their shit.
Yep. And that's how the NBA has done all their jerseys now, because now they got companies in the corner and all that shit. Right. Everyone's got different ones. So I just don't see why that makes any sense.
This doesn't make any sense anymore. You sold the company, you did your thing. Now can you let the fighters? Nobody looks at a sponsor patch on a fighter's shorts.
Wow, this guy's a sellout.
This is ghetto. These guys are unprofessional. Yeah. Having professional companies give them money to sponsor them. Come on. But anyways, let's hope that happens, although I doubt it. You never know.
Well,
fingers crossed. But exciting. Let's talk about the actual fights on BKFC. Some of the ones that stood out were obviously, we're going to talk about the Chris Lieben retirement fight. We're going to talk about Dat Nguyen and Johnny Bedford real quick. And then, of course, we'll talk briefly about Paige Van Zant's time thus far in the BKFC.
Well, let's kick it off with Chris Lieben going out on top.
Dude, he came out against Quentin Henry.
Quentin Henry, a.k.a. Buff. What's his name?
Roy Nelson.
Buff Roy Nelson.
He's like fit country.
He's buff country.
Buff country instead of big country. Dude, you said that before the fight, and I was cracking up because that's legit. He does. He looks like Roy Nelson, like trimmed down and ripped.
Yeah, if Roy Nelson ever got his shit together, that's what he looked like.
And that also makes you often wonder what could have been with Roy Nelson. But Quentin Henry is a beast. Yeah. But, man, he lost TKO. Weird kind of sequence.
Very strange fight.
Yeah.
Very strange. So, here's the thing. So, we go into the first round. We come out. There's some exchanges, some back and forth. A little bit of hesitancy for, just, the first 30 seconds or so. Mm-hmm. Then they really got to it. And so there was a sequence where Chris Lieben almost looked like so he hit him with a hook, and it looked like his thumb went into his eye because, the ref was in the way. Remember, so they were coming off the break.
A weird interaction. Yeah, go
ahead. They're coming off the break, and the ref goes to step in. and Lieben throws a left hook at the same time, and almost like punches through the ref's hand, and like at first it looks like his thumb goes into his eye.
Yeah, it looks like
then,
an eye poke at first,
yeah.
and Henry reacts like it's an eye poke.
He just screaming bloody murder on the ground. Ah! Ah! Fuck!
Yeah. Yeah, he was very upset because I think he thought the fight he wasn't going to be able to continue because he couldn't see.
Which
also,
I don't
think that was part of his
I think it should have been stopped there because
here's
here's
he
the
clearly
deal.
couldn't see, and then he's
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to do that to Chris Lieben in his retirement fight. Go
Well,
out.
based on the
Because he gets up.
Yeah,
they
he
give him
does-
like, it was really weird. They give him 5 minutes,
But
then
here's
the
the
ref
problem,
rules it's a
though.
punch, though.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Here's the problem: is they go back and look at it, and it's a punch. So wouldn't that just be a TKO? Because then ultimately, that's not an eye poke; that's a knockdown.
Right, where the fight was stopped.
Yeah, where the
And
fight was
if there
stopped
was
and
like
the opponent was given time to recover,
Yeah.
which didn't make any sense to me. I thought when the review happened, they should have ended the fight because he ultimately fucking hit him with a punch that was clean, and his knuckle went into his eye. That's not illegal. I don't care if UFC,
it's not. That's how it goes.
boxing,
That's
bare
a-
knuckle,
that's
it
a
doesn't
legal
matter.
punch,
That's how fighting goes. And he goes down to the ground, freaking out. I don't think he would have got up
No, I think he only continued because
they gave
he
him
didn't
the time.
want. They gave him the time, and he didn't want to go out like that.
Oh no, yeah. Well, so
I think he thought it was an eye poke. I don't think
Yeah.
he was faking. I'm not accusing him of anything. 'Cause
I'm
it
not
feels
either.
like
I'm
you're
just
not, I
saying.
mean, a knuckle in the
Yeah.
eye is not going to feel about the same as. And you could see a scratch on
Thumb.
his eyelid.
Yeah. I think that came from the ref's hand, though. I don't mean to be an asshole like that, but like if you watch the sequence, it was like almost like split-second difference between the ref coming in and the punching like past the ref's hand. It almost looked
Yeah,
like
it was
he
weird.
punched his hand into Quentin's face. Like it was weird. So then ultimately it does get restarted though, and a flirt. Just those fools just dropped.
Yeah,
him
Quentin
and
just
threw.
figures I'm
He's
going
like,
to
I
go
gotta
for
go.
it. I don't think he could see.
I don't
very
think so
well.
either. I think
and
he
he
just went
decided
for
I'm
it.
gonna wing it and hope I knock this fucker out. But
Yeah.
it didn't happen. He
Didn't.
got slept.
He got slipped.
He got laid out by Chris Lieben.
Yep.
Which I like Quentin Henry, and being as he was 2-0 in BKFC, he's not. He's got
Doesn't hurt your
doesn't
shine.
hurt him at all. If he wants to keep doing it. But Chris Lieben, it was nice to see him go out
Absolutely.
like that, man.
Yeah.
This is a guy that, I mean, good grief. Did you see him? He looks every bit of
Yeah.
wear and tear
Yeah.
he's had in the cage and in the gym.
Looked like he fell asleep in a lawn chair the night before too. Fucking face being so red.
Yeah, that was weird. His cheeks were like
He looked like sunburnt, but
it looked like somebody put a bunch of rouge on his cheeks.
like it was crazy.
I think it might have been from him slapping himself though, because when he was in the squared circle, as they call it, he slapped himself repeatedly in those exact same spots that were bright pink. So
Yeah. Who knows?
maybe, but dude, he went out like a champ in his retirement from combat sports. That was cool to see. I found it to be a very enjoyable fight.
Yeah,
and
I
good
liked
for
it.
fucking Chris Lieben.
Yep. Now let's talk about the most exciting fight of the card, without a doubt, and that was Dat Win versus Johnny Bedford.
Yeah, for
what
the
a fight!
135-pound championship. Bedford being the reigning champ, undefeated in bare knuckle. He actually has the best, as far as I understood it, the best bare knuckle record in the world at the time out of professional bare knuckles that are active at 5-0.
Yeah.
Because this is a young sport.
This is a
Like
young
it's
sport.
It's both an old sport but a
Yeah.
young sport. It's
Well, here's the
young in
thing.
that it's come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was an old sport that was, long time ago was seen as like the equivalent to boxing, and then
Right.
and then it was kind of died off, and then went through this a dead period of probably almost like 100 years. Like if you
Not
really
quite
look
as
at it.
that long, I don't think, but close.
Well, I'm talking
know.
until it was like actually sanctioned as like professional fighting leagues. Like it's been probably close to the early 1900s, probably.
Which is like why they award that Police Gazette belt, which is also up for
Yeah.
grabs at the 135-pound. It was his championship belt plus the 135-pound diamond-studded Police Gazette belt, which sounds cheesy, but is actually the original bare-knuckle belt
Yeah.
that was awarded back when everybody was fighting bare-knuckle.
Yeah.
And then went dormant because nobody had bare-knuckle, and then was revived again now. So
Yeah,
it's,
because it's
one of
ultimately
the oldest belts in combat sports, actually, which
Yeah.
is a fun fact.
Yeah,
And that was a fun fight.
it was. Yeah,
Sees Dat Win get a decision and
Razor
become the new
thin one.
champ.
it wasn't on the cards, but ultimately I thought it was.
I thought it was very close. I had Bedford winning 2 to 3 rounds to 2, But I'm not mad about the decision. I could totally see why you had it the other way. It was that close. I was half expecting a draw.
You know what I think ultimately it came down to?
What's that?
Is that win doesn't cut very easily. In Johnny Bedford, maybe he doesn't either, but that win was able to bloody him up. So, like, in a lot of those sequences, we saw a lot of punches. Like, if you look at the stats, it's literally it was like a 3-punch difference.
Bedford had one more punch.
One more punch. I think it was like 69 to 70 landed strikes. But if you watch those flurries, a lot of what was happening was like Bedford was starting him, and then Wynn was finishing him. You know what I mean? Where it was like if you've seen Dat Wynn fight before, he's one of those guys who's willing to stand in the pocket, lean and rock and parry and dodge punches and then come back and, hit you with the big ones. And I feel like what Bedford was doing in the first 2 rounds made no sense to me. Because he was like meeting him in the middle, but lowering his stance to Win and like trying to meet him in the guard.
He was almost sticking his chin and head out a little bit right into the danger zone.
It was almost like an MMA stance.
Instead of using his much taller range. I was a little baffled by that too.
The third and fourth, I feel like, because that's when he was able to execute the game plan, use his jab a bit more, get more of the longer punches. And then I think the fifth was the one that decided it. I think the fifth was just like whoever I think it was obviously that win 1-2. Obviously, Bedford 3-4.
Yeah, I gave Bedford the fifth on a razor.
Yeah, and the fifth was like one of those rounds where the beginning was a lot of Bedford, and then the end was a lot of Wynn. So it really came down to who you thought landed the more significant strikes.
It's a fight I'd like to see again. Maybe not immediately, maybe immediately. I don't know how the BKFC really does that. I don't think they know yet. These are titles that they just have awarded. I mean, they had a tournament the Bedford won for that title, and this is the first time it's really changing hands here.
Yeah.
So, fucking
little
great fight, though.
Little skirmish after in the ring as well.
I don't recall.
I don't know the guy's name, to be honest. I don't.
Oh, that's right. The guy that Wynn was supposed to fight before when Bedford got injured. He had a late replacement. No, I know his name is.
I can't think of it.
Oh crap, I can't remember right now either. But he's a fairly accomplished fighter as well. He came into the ring and tried to talk some shit. That's right. It didn't go over that well. Dat Wynn was just like, yeah, get out of here.
Yeah, bye-bye.
It kind of. I mean, good try. The BKFC's trying to do that stuff. You know, they had
a lot of respect between those two. A lot of respect between those two, although there was a lot of shit talk leading up.
There's shit talking up front, but it's legitimately a fist fight. Literally a fist fight.
Yeah, it's a battle of wills at the highest level.
And I don't know how any fan of combat sports could watch that fight and not think that's great, man. Yeah. That was a good display of a new and still evolving sport.
You know what I think was best for the BKFC, because this was kind of like their flagship event? I think this was one of the few cards that wasn't as bloody as other cards.
That's true. It wasn't as bad as some of these cards get.
A lot of these guys had tough faces and didn't get beat up. Like that early fight, the two chicks, I can't think of their names, I'm sorry. But that fight was probably the most bloody fight of the night. Everything else was pretty straightforward knockouts or kind of boring decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, like, obviously it's not going to be like that all the time, but for it to be its like flagship event and for it to be like the most eyes on it, that was probably ultimately best for the sport. For them to take that next step.
It was a fun fight. It was a fun card. I didn't watch any of the fights and think, oh, this sucks.
Yeah, me neither.
The only one that left me a little like, was the main event, which saw, Britton Hart versus Paige Van Zandt, where I'm not surprised by what happened because this is different. This is not the same as boxing. And Paige can get in at ATT and box as much as she wants. It's not the same thing when you take the gloves off, and you can't really spar for this. You get it through experience, which she seemed to finally start putting it together pretty nice in the 5th round. But by then it was a little too late, and she lost a decision.
That's the thing, too, is I think in the 1st round, she came in and she was like, "Let's go to work," and she put it on Britton.
I thought she looked really good.
The first round, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a long night for Britton if they keep fighting like this." And then in the 2nd and 3rd, I feel like she was able to use the clinch so much more effective than she was. So much more effective than when she was in the 1st. that I feel like the clinch game ruined Paige in the second, third, and fourth.
Well, she made a critical mistake, I think, and I think you'll agree with me, in the clinch game that Britain Hart didn't make.
She was looking for more control than landing
She
punches.
controlled and was not landing punches. She got that Muay Thai clinch on and then just kind of held on and tried to jerk her around, and the whole time Britain Hart's pummeling her in the stomach with punches that maybe weren't as effective as you would want, but they clearly were. The judges could see them.
You know what?
You've got one fighter not throwing and one fighter going to town on her stomach at a pretty consistent basis every round.
Well, and here's the thing I think that also won her over in the judges' eyes is even in the rounds one. I think ultimately this fight was scored 3-2, 1-5 going to Paige, 2-3-4 going to Britain.
Yeah.
Which a lot of judges had it that way.
That's the way I saw it. Yeah.
That's the way I saw it. And so I think the second, third, and fourth, what she did so effectively was able to show no matter – because if you look at the punch stats, actually Paige landed more shots than her. If you look at – but –
Stat-wise.
Stat-wise. But I think because she landed so much in the first and the fifth, that second, third, and fourth, she just outworked her in those 3 rounds to win the fight, to win the rounds. You know, she knew she lost that first round. She knew that she wasn't going to get knocked out either, though, because like we talked about before on this show, Paige has knockout power, but I think Paige has explosivity in her knockout power, where she has to have some kind of like, you know, super explosive movement to really get like a flat line knockout.
Well, Britain came out and said afterwards that's the hardest she's been hit, and I don't think she's hyping it because she's not going to be giving PVZ any compliments. They don't like each other. She don't like her now.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about that for a minute. So after the fight, Britain Hart had a very like WWE style like whole I'm a feeling and you are guys, or what did she say?
She said, "I'm not a fighter. I'm a feeling.
I'm a feeling. You're all gonna have to feel me or something like that."
Look, I respect the effort, but god damn, that was cringy, girl.
It was not only was it cringy, she was like, yeah, that was the biggest fight of her career, but ultimately the girl is 2-2 in BKFC, and you fought a person who has a 0-0 record, and you have lost to the champion. Like, no offense, but like that's kind of where you're at right now.
She was giving speeches like she just won the gold medal at the Olympics after a lifetime of effort.
Yeah,
which I understand it was a big moment.
It was a big moment.
It was her biggest, probably the most eyes because of Paige.
Yeah. But the title wasn't even on the line.
That was cringy. That was too much, man. Yeah. Be you. Don't go with so much script that's super cheese.
Is that her, though?
I don't know.
Because if you watch the pre-fight press conference.
I've never seen much of her, honestly.
Pre-fight press conference. Remember me and you were talking about how
was cringe. I was like,
I'm not sitting down because nobody puts me down. I'm going to rise up, and I rise up above everyone. I was like, all right, dude.
Wow, that was...
All right. All right.
I respect the sentiment. I get the feeling like you're trying to make the most of your moment, but
there's a time
some people
place.
Like Connor can do that where you're like, that's cool and funny, and there's other times when you're like, I feel a little embarrassed for you right now. You know? But dude, she won. She made the most of her moment. Like it or not, she turned somewhat viral off of it. I don't know how much. Or it is what it is.
That's the thing is I feel like also at the same time, Paige didn't lose very much shine here.
Dude, I thought Paige looked fine. This is why she should have fought one of the 25 other supposed females they signed to the 125-pound division that hadn't had a fight in the BKFC yet, so they can both learn together.
Yeah.
I think Paige is still going to do quite well and might actually beat Hart in a rematch down the road when she's really in the groove.
I think a couple small adjustments and she beats her. I don't mean to be like that, but like, you know what I'm saying?
No,
if you watch that fight.
Dude, we're not some Paige Van Zandt fanboys over here, but I think that's clear. I think
she makes a couple adjustments. I think she could have won that fight.
I think so too. And it was not anything she could do. There's some things in life you just can't really learn until you do them.
So now I want to talk to you.
I think bare knuckle is one of them.
I want to talk to you about something else that happened like pretty much in the aftermath of this fight. So then Paige Van Zandt just starts riddling off this sequence of posts. One saying how she's coming back and this isn't the end and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then another one talking about how she begged her husband to call it off and that she didn't want to fight anymore and this was the last time she's ever stepping in the ring. And I understand that no matter if you're the first fight or the 20th fight of your career, those kind of feelings happen before a fight. But when you're talking about someone who's lost her UFC career, like
She's
I don't
lost
think
5 fights
yeah,
in MMA.
in MMA, and like all of them were her biggest fights, and ultimately she is. I don't mean to be rude when I say this, but ultimately she's taking a step down in competition when you talk about overall like quality and class of a lot of these fighters. Not to be a dick or anything, but I'm just saying if you
There's
put
being a dick and there's reality. You don't have to.
If
You
you
don't have to sugarcoat shit. Yeah,
yeah.
Britain Hart is not. She couldn't.
if
be
you
making
put
it
Valentina Shevchenko in that
UFC.
weight class in BKFC, she dominates everyone the same she dominates in the UFC.
Of course,
You know what I'm
murder
saying?
Everybody in that division.
That's ultimately what I'm saying. And like Beck Rawlings was like
But
the same
Rawlings
thing.
lost to Paige in the
Yeah,
UFC.
in
She
the
got knocked the
UFC.
fuck out by the
Exactly.
high kick.
Exactly. And Johnny Bedford, no offense to him either, but at 135 in the UFC, he was kind of 500,
Yeah.
overall. So like that's why I feel like BKFC is still going to be kind of that niche sport until they make a few more, like we talked about this on the weekend as well, as like wow, a lot of these guys are 35 and over. Like when you look at like the BKFC right now, and I think that's necessary. Like the UFC was the same way in its infancy.
Yeah, you had
You
these
know?
old ass karate guys and these old ass wrestlers and stuff like that too. More because they have the experience.
Yeah.
They're not rookies to the game. They're not.
Yeah.
So it's not a tough man contest.
Yeah.
That's why they give their MMA records before the fights. They want their fans to know these are experienced combat veterans,
Yeah.
not just a couple of people we pick up off the fucking streets here.
But so ultimately, what I'm asking you though is when you hear those mixed motions from somebody who's taken a step down in competition, maybe took a pay raise, but like there's different needs and wants of her and what they want from her. You know what I mean? Like how much longer do you see her doing this? Do you think she fights out her whole contract?
I think that depends on what happens in her next fight. I hope that instead of listening to her when she says, "Give me the toughest person you have available," they just give her a person who's coming in fresh and new that we've never heard of before. Because she needs to get a win here, and more importantly than getting a win, she needs that experience. But I think sometimes people share too fucking much of their personal information and their inner thoughts on social media. And I think it's easy to do when you got like 2.5 million followers and you're used to putting out your thoughts. And some things should be better kept to yourself.
True.
And I think those thoughts that she had, I think, are perfectly normal. I've gotten my ass kicked, unfortunately, in a championship fight for the Golden Gloves and been embarrassed as fucking shit with like 2,000 people watching, including my family.
Yeah.
Like, it's brutal, dude. I was like, I'm never fucking doing this again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole ride back home from Denver, I wanted to fucking shoot myself, bro.
Yeah.
The thing was, I didn't have social media to go put that out in the public. And after a couple of days, I was like, all right, cool. I'm going back to the fucking gym. Because I took second place in the goddamn state. I'm going back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
I get that. But I just don't think you should share all that information, dude.
Yeah, but I feel like at the same time, it'd be different if she was saying, like, that she didn't want to fight and shit after the fight. Because then that's based on the loss. I'm talking about she was saying before she walked out, she was telling her husband to cancel the fight, that she didn't want to do it.
I think that's the same thing, though, because everybody has that. Like, Tyson would be in the bathroom throwing up. Like, no one just wants to admit it. Cerrone's back there shaking like a fucking leaf. Like, the guys that say they don't are either sociopaths
or just
like,
have dialed in some crazy amount of
you just channel that. Like,
confidence.
dude, if you're not scared and you're about to get into a cage and do any type of physical combat with another person that's going to inflict harm on you, you probably shouldn't be there, or like you're secretly a serial killer. You know, it's just what you do with that emotion, because most everybody on the planet, we all feel it, but they take off and run.
Yeah.
It's the people that can, and be it whatever the sport is, because it's all the same. Like, I'm sure you were scared before big wrestlers. You're going in there with another human being, dude. But I just don't think you should share that, man. Because Cerrone got a lot of flack when he shared that shit, too. And I think the only person that didn't was Mike Tyson, because people just couldn't believe Mike Tyson got scared and threw up before fights. They're like, you say it, but I don't believe it.
Well, I
So
think
that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up our recap of the BKFC. Once again, I think it was the card of the weekend, probably.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Was it worth the $40? I don't know. Luckily, I didn't have to pay it. So kudos to the BKFC for that $4 a month deal. I recommend everybody here signs the fuck up, dude.
Yeah.
They got a great library of fights. They're adding to it. The regular pay-per-views are like half off on it. You can get them for like $10 or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. Yeah, let's move on to the UFC card, which had moments. There was moments I put down my book.
You know what?
And watched the fight.
I think this was a change of the guard kind of event where we saw kind of the names we have known and loved are kind of starting to round out their careers. And I think we
Frankie.
saw. No, not only Frankie, though. Not only Frankie. 'Cause let's just start from the bottom. We got, Beneil Dariush making a freaking career resurgence at an age where we all thought after those 2 knockouts, where does he go from? And now he's rattled off, 4 in a row?
Yeah, he's back here knocking at the door.
Back here knocking at the door in the fight of the night performance against Diego Ferreira, who is another one who I think this is actually a rematch, too.
It was. He beat him once before.
Yeah. And it was very similar to the first fight, I think, if you go back and watch. But, Dariush just finding a way to win and finding a way to continue that win streak. Guy's got a damn near full head of gray hair. You know what I mean? And it's like there's 2. That's why I feel like there is a little mixture of because then let's go on up the card again. Then you have Clay Guida beating Michael Johnson. And that's another 2 guys who are, in their late 30s. I think they even might be in their early 40s.
Johnson's like 36 and Guida's like 39.
I was going to say 39 or 40 and
old.
He looked old, but Guida fucking put it on him early.
Very wrestle heavy, but
he
wins.
He wins. And that's the thing.
Wins.
How do you cut a guy who wins? You can't.
I think Michael Johnson's going to get cut at this point.
He might.
He's peaked.
He's exciting, but he can't lose to guys like this and expect to keep getting good fights. Because I think he's almost 500 at this point.
Yeah, he's like 2 fights off of 500. He's like,
and at one point he was freaking top of the division.
Right, and that means nothing like it means in boxing, but it does mean something.
It does
when you're in the UFC still.
Yeah,
and that number on the right side keeps growing.
Yeah, true. It's true.
He came in with a lot of losses, kind of like Artem did as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he's good. But I don't know if he's.
I feel like the sport's kind of moved past him because you know what he does is every fight for Michael Johnson. It's like, whoa, he looks like the old Michael Johnson in the first fucking 5 minutes or the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then some split second wave change of the fight happens, and then he's on his back foot and he looks, done. And you're like, well, how much longer?
Yeah. Doesn't do very well.
How much longer is this going to be a UFC fight for him and not a Bellator or a ONE FC fight? You know what I mean? And yeah. I think Clay's right behind him, too, obviously.
I know, even with the win. I mean, how long are we going to keep? Dude, Clay Guida. He comes out and gets it done. But he gets the win.
That's 3 in a row for him.
Surprisingly enough.
Yep.
He was asking for like...
Oh, wait, no, 2 in a row.
Yeah.
He lost to Jim Miller. So then, of course, we saw in the co-main event, Corey Sandhagen just...
No, this is a legit title fight. This is a great fight here. Frankie Edgar.
This is a title eliminator.
Title eliminator against Corey Sandhagen, coming back, with his second fight after losing to Sterling so quickly.
Yeah, and then you got Frankie on the back end of the Korean Zombie fight. Then he turns it around, beats Pedro Munoz in a very, very close fight. And
to be fair, Korean Zombie was at featherweight, but it still is still a devastating loss.
Yeah,
but whatever. He comes down to to bantam, beats Munoz. This is the big moment. 28 seconds in, the flying knee from Sandhagen lands perfectly on his chin, knocks him out cold on the spot.
He stayed in the same position as he went down. It was rough to watch.
It was an absolutely beautiful knee and a murderous blow.
It's like what Frankie said after the fight. He said, sometimes this game is a motherfucker, but luckily I didn't remember much of it. I was like, that's just the way to look at it, man.
That was hard because I watch MMA because of shit like that. And the only reason I wasn't really reacting to how fucking cool that was is because it was against Frankie Edgar, man.
Well, if you look at Frankie, that's only about the third. I think that's only the third time in his entire career he's been finished.
And that was
But they've all been devastating if you look
that
at
knee
it.
was so perfect. Like
It was
Sandhagen was such a
ridiculous.
big, long, lanky guy, and Frankie had his guard up and was moving sideways like he always does, doing his Frankie Edgar thing, and he timed that thing right up, and it hit his jaw like a perfect,
Yeah, it
like
was
a
hard.
perfect right hand
Yeah.
would. Like
was
you
rough.
saw his jaw just go whoop,
Yeah.
and you knew that was it. It's done.
Yeah, it was done.
He fell like a tree.
Well, and you know what is it's just hard to watch is like deep inside me I wanted to see Frankie fight for that belt just one last time.
We all did, man.
You know what I mean?
If you
I just
watch
wanted
MMA
it.
at all, how
I
are you
wanted
not?
it.
Like, come on.
I
You got to be a
wanted it.
cold son of a bitch not to want to see
Yeah.
Frankie Edgar earn himself another shot.
You know what I think
But-
the corner that where like Sandhagen's taking the biggest like turn is like he finishes fights now. Like before he finished fights in not flashy ways, but he liked to not play with his food because that's a fucked up way to look at a fight. But he did sometimes earlier in his career. You know what I mean? He showed a lot of that movement like T.J. Dillashaw and Dominic Cruz, and you know what I mean? Like a lot of that volume versus power, which is a good strategy. But when you lose to a guy who's fighting for the title and you need to put yourself back in the picture, 2 devastating knockouts in a row is definitely
He's
the
coming
way
out
to
with
do
some
it.
murderous intent here.
Yeah, he's looking to finish
That
fights
was
now.
that was a statement. I think he definitely got himself the winner here of Sterling versus Jan.
Yeah, whenever that fight happens.
I mean, I know Dillashaw's in the mix.
I think he should fight Dillashaw. I think that would be a fucking great fight.
That'd be something. I wouldn't be mad at that. I'd like to see it, but
I don't know if TJ wants that though. He's talked about it. Him and TJ used to be training partners for a bit
Did
at
they?
Elevation.
well, according to Dillashaw, he was promised a title shot. When he
Yeah,
left.
fuck.
But that's a Dana
This
White
sport-
promise. That
yeah.
doesn't mean
Yeah, exactly.
jack
This
shit.
sport is built on broken promises, buddy.
Like, that is about as much value as me promising him a
Yeah,
title shot.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
all. Well, we'll see. But great win for Sandhagen. Sad for Frankie. Next for Sandhagen, title shot. Next for Frankie. I
I would
kind of
like to
wish
see
he'd
him
retire,
fight an
but
unranked fighter for his last fight.
please, let's not give him a murderer. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think he's doing the title run at 35.
Fight Cub Swanson a 5th time.
Go back up to 45. Cub just had a fight announced, too.
Did he? I didn't see it.
Yeah, against somebody who's not coming to me now, but we'll talk about it next week.
And then in the main event, we saw former Bellator champion Alexander Volkov take out Alistair Rovereem. And I think that about spells the end for Alistair Rovereem.
Volkov's straight right hand in that fight
Dangerous.
was a thing of beauty, and it is dangerous. He is lanky and lean, and that thing broke Overeem's nose in the 1st round. And he kept firing it right through that guard. Overeem, unfortunately, thinks he can shell up a bit. I think it's a reflex left over from his kickboxing days with
Yeah.
them big gloves. It's just
It's
some
tough in
things you
this sport.
can't get away. Some things you can't stop doing when they're so ingrained.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he did all right. He was landing some monstrous right hands. Overeem's in
Yeah.
any fight, but
But here's the
dude, he
problem.
got busted the fuck up by that right hand.
Here's the problem for both guys, though. So if you look at Alistair, he's had some crazy, like, at least in the last 5 years, everybody in front of him he's lost to. Like, go up and down.
Right.
Like that top 3 to 4, he's lost to all those guys. He's 40 years old. He just lost to the 5th or 7th guy in the division in Volkov. And then the same thing with Volkov. You know, you lost to Derek Lewis.
That's probably
You
lost to Lewis and Blades, who are
to
ranked above him
Blades,
right
yeah.
now. So he doesn't
So-
have a clear path. He was talking about title shots and this and that. You're not there yet,
It's just-
unfortunately.
yeah, it's a weird situation overall.
If he keeps murdering people with that right hand, he's gonna make a quick statement. I mean, it doesn't take much in the heavyweight division, but things are
doesn't.
still kind of
It's still kind of up in the air, though.
because you got the next 2 fights spoken for, pretty
Yeah.
much.
The next 2 title fights, yeah.
Yeah. So, irregardless of how the first one goes, the next one is all but a done deal.
And then also you got Blades and Lewis fighting too. And if you're telling me Derek Lewis or Curtis Blades puts on a terrific performance, you're not going to give them the title shot over
I got some
Volkov?
Zookies in this grinder if you want some too.
I'll do a little half and half.
Yeah. Actually, I'll top this off with that GMO too.
But yeah, I just feel like the heavyweight division is kind of spoken for at the moment.
Yeah, a big win like that is great for him, but he's not really moving closer to the title right now. He needs at least one more fight. I think that's it for Overeem. I don't know if he's going to retire. I know he released a statement. I honestly didn't read it, but he was already saying that this was his last run, and that if he did happen to win the title, God, I can smell that all the way from there. That garlic, mushroom, onion. Hope you are smoking something as good as that, folks. Seriously, that is primo herb. He's already talking though that his last run. It was pretty
devastating.
It was a pretty. He was bloodied up and nose busted, and
I don't think it's his last one. I think he goes out with maybe a.
It's his last one going up the ladder.
Yeah.
If he wants to stick around.
Same
and
thing with Frankie.
Kind
of him and Frankie are in the same spot.
Yeah.
They're just names that we grew up watching and grew up with the sport, and now they've kind of just Father Time's undefeated, man.
Yeah, man, you can keep fighting. You can even turn in marquee fights. Probably headline a card, but as far as like going up the ladder and fighting for the title, no, dude. Alistair's done. Frankie's not doing it.
Yeah.
Alistair's been fucking. I mean, he's had 14 KOs prior to this, which was a TKO. It's not the same thing, but at some point you also got to wonder like how much more punishment you want to take if you're not gonna get that title. I mean,
yeah, true.
Frankie's only been knocked out. This is his third time.
Yeah.
He's taken a lot of punishment. He's got the most octagon time of any fighter, although luckily for him, he didn't really add to it with this fight. There's a positive for him, I guess.
Yeah.
Took less punishment faster. Maybe. Volkov, who's next for him?
I think it's time for him to maybe sit back and wait a bit and see what happens.
I think that'd be a smart move. See what plays out with at least with the title fight here. I mean, March is going to be upon us pretty quick. It's the 27th is the Stipe Ngannou fight, and that's going to say a lot about the future of the division.
Absolutely.
I mean,
there
might be a third fight between those two men, maybe if Ngannou wins, but I don't think it's going to be immediate.
No, I don't
think John Jones is going to get his shot.
Yeah,
and then I don't see Stipe getting it if he were to lose in the situation, getting a title shot again. I think he'd have to fight somebody else in the meantime as well. So.
Yeah.
Same with Ngannou. He loses to Stipe again. That's it.
Back in the queue.
Back in the queue for you, my friend.
Yep.
So Volkov's gonna have to wait. Overeem, I don't see him sticking around, dude. He's got so many fights, and when everybody looks at his record, that doesn't include his other things outside of MMA. It's just his MMA record has got like 60 fights.
Yeah. Shit.
I mean, what's his overall combat sports?
It's got to be in the hundreds.
He has a lot, man. Yeah. He's been around forever. Yeah. Back when he was a skinny little 205er.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up our UFC Fight Night recap. All right, so in other news, we got Nate Diaz coming back into the media spotlight a little bit here.
Resurfacing after.
After
dude, he don't do shit
2019.
Yeah. It's Ariel Helwani.
Yeah, coming back out, talking a bit about the kind of the state of the 155 and 170 divisions and where he feels like he fits in the picture. And from what it sounds like, he's looking to return in 2021, and he's looking for a fight at either 165 pounds, which doesn't exist, and 100 or 170 pounds against either Dustin Poirier or Charles Oliveira.
And how likely do you think that is to happen at that weight mentioned?
We have the same age.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. I mean, I like that. I think we talked about it a year ago on this show after seeing him in person. Yeah. That he's fucking. There's no way this guy's going back to 155. Like, he's way too big. This isn't the kid from Tough, all skinny. Like, this is a grown ass 30-year-old man who's near. He's way too big for 155.
Yeah,
I think that was clear a long time ago, and now he's putting that out publicly. And people who are in denial just keep picturing him because he had an unsuccessful run before he was ready at welterweight. He ready now. But how is Dustin Poirier or Charles Oliveira going to go up there and fight him? Oliveira wants to fight for the title. And Poirier might do it.
Just because they've got history.
And I think he knows win or lose that wouldn't hurt him at 55 if they did it at 70, and it'd be a money fight while his name is high in the money range.
Well, and also the UFC is hanging that belt over his head, man. Like, they're saying Khabib's done, he's not done. we're not going to strip him until he officially retires, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, hang that fucking belt over my head as long as you want, but I'm going to go fight. Like, ultimately, that's what I feel like his mentality is right now. It's like he just wants to fight. He's got to strike while the iron's hot. Similar to what, like, George Masvidal did. You know, like, when Masvidal fought Askren, he's like, all right, let's turn around quick. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. You know?
Imagine a world where Dustin Poirier goes up and fights Nate Diaz at 170, and let's just for the sake of this comment, wins, and then goes and does Conor 3, no title, wins, and then takes his title shot and wins. And getting 2 big-ass money fights, and then a title shot coming off beating both of those dudes. Yeah. Dude, he'd be an immortal in MMA. It would change the whole fucking conversation.
Obviously, this is
even more than it already has with his win over Conor.
Well, what I'm about to say is pretty obvious already. But in my eyes, and I think the world's eyes as of right now, outside of Khabib Nurmagomedov, Dustin Poirier is probably the best lightweight in the world at this moment.
Yeah.
You know, Michael Chandler's in that conversation, Oliveira's in that conversation, and even Justin Gaethje's kind of in that conversation. But I think Dustin Poirier finds a way to beat them all.
And Poirier's got wins over some of them already. He's only lost to Khabib.
Did he fight Oliveira before?
He hasn't fought Oliveira. Is the only one.
It's strange that they
obviously
fought.
Not Chandler because he's been in Bellator, but he's got to win over Gaethje.
Yeah.
He's got to win over Ferguson.
Yeah. Not Ferguson.
Not Ferguson. Oh, I'm sorry.
Holloway,
yeah.
And like, if you look at that run Dustin Poirier went on, like, it's pretty ridiculous. Because if you look at after the Michael Johnson fight, everyone kind of was like, he's moved up to light heavyweight, got knocked out by Michael Johnson, blah, 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 blah. Then he goes on that Duffy fight, the Yancy Medeiros fight, fucking just moving up the ladder constantly, finally gets the Eddie Alvarez fight, is beating Eddie Alvarez in most of the fight, ends up getting knocked down by an illegal knee, becomes a no contest. They rematch, absolute war. He outlasts Eddie Alvarez. Then you look at it, he goes on, outlasts Justin Gaethje, goes on, outlasts Max Holloway, hiccup with the Khabib fight, but then he goes in, outlasts fucking Dan Hooker and beats Conor. Like, that run is super underrated. Like, that's fucking nuts what he's done.
It is.
And like we were saying before, he needs to strike now. Like, he needs to go now. And I think this Nate Diaz fight is a perfect thing to strike while the iron's hot.
I think so too, because especially if they did it at 170, frankly, because he doesn't. It's a win-win
does nothing
for him.
Yeah. Well,
it's just a money fight. Yeah, it does. It just gets him moneying in a big name.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like. I think that would be a good move on his behalf, especially since, like you said, the UFC is dicking around with the belt. Yeah. Khabib still has it. Yeah. I don't understand.
I don't get it either.
What are we doing?
How did you not strip him?
Khabib came out just like 2 days ago saying again that Poirier should
just be the champ.
Just give him the belt like they did fucking Aldo.
Like they did Aldo, yeah, 100%.
Like, can we do that? I'm not a big fan of that, but let's do something, please, and move forward. Otherwise,
what are we doing?
Announce it or something.
Yeah.
But Nate Diaz also had some other things to say. I was like, it's a good 40-minute interview. What do you think? What do you think of his actual chances of coming back and doing any of this stuff?
I like him because it seems like Poirier's down, and at 170 pounds, there's good fights there for him. Like, let's just say Masvidal keeps playing around. I'd love to see him versus Colby. I'd love to see him versus Michael Chiesa. Love to see him versus Gilbert Burns or anyone at 170 pounds. Like, if ultimately those two fights where he wants to flirt with, like, trying to create a 165-pound division in the UFC don't work out for him and he's got to, take one of the guys at 170, I think there's some good competition there for him where he could probably have some pretty good results in.
Well, we'll see. Nate Diaz saying he wants to fight in the UFC, actually getting a contract signed and a fight progressing is something that's pretty fucking rare.
Yeah, true.
Indeed. But let's keep our fingers crossed and hope it happens because I would love to see it.
Yeah.
A couple of fight announcements we had that were interesting. We've got an old school matchup announced with Donald Cerrone versus former Jackson Wink teammate Diego Sanchez.
in Diego's retirement fight.
And Diego's retirement fight. I don't know. I hear a lot of praise for this fight, and people are excited. I don't know. Something about it just makes me cringe. I get it. He's going to fight somebody.
I just think it's a good
It's
way
at
to go out.
170.
It's a good way to go out. I think Donald's beats him though.
Oh, you think Donald Cerrone is going to beat the student of the love guru? the Fabio, whatever the fuck his joke of a...
Josh
That dude's
Fabia.
done irreparable damage to
yeah.
whatever is left of Diego Sanchez's fighting skills. I
For sure,
guarantee
bro.
you.
Without a doubt.
Donald Cerrone has... If he hasn't improved, he's at least stayed the same and sharp when he left Jackson Wink.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to murder Diego Sanchez. It won't even be competitive. Mark my words. He's going to go out there and smoke this fool.
Think so?
No disrespect. I'm not even going to say no disrespect. Diego's lost his fucking mind. He's not my friend. I don't
Yeah.
get it. I respect the fight in him, but
Yeah.
dude's crazy.
Yeah, he's got a
I
little
don't. What are you doing?
Yeah. He's a nuts. He's nuts. I'm taking Donald as well.
I'm taking Donald by.
I think he knocks him out in the first round. Probably.
It's going to be brutal. It might last 3 rounds, but it'll be an utter dominance.
I
Just
think
because
that.
Diego's tough as fuck.
Well, I think Diego's going to try to take him down. Ultimately, I don't think he
Well,
wants anything
Donald's
on
a
the feet.
beast on his back, though. Donald Cerrone
he is good.
can fucking submit him on his
He could
back.
submit him. I could see that.
I don't know. Diego came out, man. His last fight didn't even look like he was training. He's so out
he got
of
his ass
shape.
beat.
Got smoked. He hasn't looked good in any of these clowns fights, and he's still staying with this guy.
Well, Jake Matthews is just huge compared to him too. That's who he
Yeah.
fought, right, in his last fight.
Yeah, and he came out, and he looked terrible. Like, I mean, I don't mean his fighting skills. I mean, when he came out, he stood there. He looked like a guy who hadn't even been training.
Yeah.
He looked flubby and out of shape for a fighter.
Yeah. It's
like-
terrible.
I mean, not that Diego was some kind of bodybuilder before, but I mean, dude,
Looked like
you can
he-
tell. You
living
look,
on
you
a
look
van
like you've
down
been
by the
hitting the
river.
burgers and not much else.
He looks like he's living in a van down by the river, which he is.
I don't know. I guess he's just running from his trainer in the cage from the knife still. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Him and Emil Mick.
It's an interesting matchup, though. I mean, it feels like it's something out of the early 2000s is happening, but here
Yeah.
we are.
Well,
Cerrone's going to murder him. That's taking place, what, May 8th,
May
I think?
8th, yep. Fight night.
What else did we get?
And then a little UFC 260 main card action. We're going to see Jimmy Crute, who was originally scheduled to take on Johnny Walker, but unfortunately Johnny Walker had to pull out with a pec tear, which is pretty devastating injury. And Anthony Lionheart Smith has chose to step in and take on Jimmy Crute, which I think is a tough fight to take.
On Smith's part?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're just talking about what we talked about a little bit earlier. The stakes that are there for Crute and the stakes that are there for Smith are just...
I hope Smith's been in the gym on the DL training this whole time and not coming off the bench, coming off the couch short notice.
True.
He needs a win.
He does.
I don't know. That's tough. Taking short notice fights is tough. I don't know.
And the thing
and
with
Crute
Crute
is no joke.
He's evolved in front of our eyes.
Yeah, he has,
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? And his jiu-jitsu game is so good. But he can still knock you out cold, you know? I think it's a tough fight for Anthony.
Very tough fight.
I think it's a tough fight for Jimmy, too, but I just feel like Jimmy has nothing to lose here if he loses to fucking Lionheart. Talking about a former title fight challenger 5 fights ago, whatever.
Well, we'll see how it plays out. We're expecting some other big fight announcements here over the course of next week. We'll get into on the next show. But we do have a pay-per-view event clocking into the UFC this weekend from right here in Vegas. Is it UFC 259?
258.
258. We've got Kamaru Usman defending his welterweight title finally against former training partner Gilbert Burns. We've had the pleasure of seeing Burns work up close and personal in jiu-jitsu tournaments here.
Black belt CBD.
Yeah,
So-
he's a beast on the ground, and now he's really added some solid striking in there.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of power.
Dude, I was watching Embedded. He looks in fucking tip-top shape right now. Like, since his move up to 70, not to say he's ever looked in bad shape, but, you know, he carries a little bit more weight on him. So he is, like, he was a little, not chubby, but you know what I mean? Kind of how Kelvin Gastelum is. You know, how Kelvin Gastelum, like, he's not fat, but he's not, like, ripped. Now Gilbert looks fucking ripped.
He does.
He looks
very strong.
ripped. And I think this is gonna be a very, very close fight. I think people are not ready for how close this fight's gonna be.
The bookmakers are favoring Usman pretty heavily to the point. The last line I saw was like plus 185 for Burns, which is a number, if that's holding right now or certainly getting higher, I'm going to bet that. I like Gilbert Burns in this fight enough where I'm going to go put money on it. As long as those odds are somewhere up there. At that payout, I think that's a great bet. Yeah. Not that I'm giving betting advice to anybody. What the fuck do I know? But I'm taking my money and putting it on that at plus 185 or higher. I like Burns to win here. Mm-hmm. I know the chances are slim. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I think he's going to pull it off. Yeah. I think he's a guy who knows Usman very well. I mean, obviously they
both know each other. Yeah, they know each other very well. This is going to be one of those fights where it might get boring a few times, and not because it's because guys are tired or anything. I think because they know each other so well. They know the movement and they know the cadence and they know the timing of each other's like striking and grappling game. That I feel like there's maybe even the first 2 rounds are going to be a lot of jostling for position, takedown attempts, and like.
You think we're going to see a lot of, you know, the wrestling of Usman versus the jiu-jitsu off his back of Burns?
It's going to have to be that ultimately.
Which is world class.
You know what? I saw Gilbert doing this super dope workout. I may be behind the par, and like maybe he's been doing this for a long time, but he was doing this thing where he had, it was almost looked like a fucking like log, or it was just like a heavy mat basically, right? Rolled up, and then it had 2 cables attached to it, and he was like in a on the cage takedown position basically, and it was a lift, and he was just lifting this weight up off of him like you would do when you're defending a takedown,
right?
You know, like
and lifting someone driving against your leg. Yeah.
And I was just watching that, and I was like, dude, like he's ready to go. Like I guarantee you, their game plan is going to be stay on the feet with Kamaru and defend the takedown. I don't think they want to go to the ground.
I don't think they do either.
That's why I think it could get a little boring.
Be interesting to see his hands versus Usman's.
Well, and we've seen Usman in the past when faced with a comparable grappler lean on his striking.
Right.
The only time we ever see
look at him go against Covington. It was a strike fest.
Well, that's the thing is like the only time we ever see Usman really use his wrestling is when he fights people that he knows are better at striking than he is. You know. So.
We'll see. How much has Burns' striking evolved since he left the camp?
Well, other way around. You mean Usman?
Usman's, yes. Yeah, I mean, just how much since they've last been in the cage together and been actually training partners, how much has changed in Gilbert Burns' game that Usman's unaware of?
Well, and here's the thing, too. When you look at both camps, they both are led by striking coaches. Henry Hooft is a striking coach. Trevor Whitman is a striking coach. You know what I mean? So I'd be curious to see how this turns out.
Well,
who are you taking?
Oh, I'm taking Burns, and I'm legitimately going to go bet this fight. I like the chances here of a good payout.
I'm leaning Burns, but my brain is telling me that Usman is just going to be a little too much for him.
So you're saying you're not coming with me down to the MGM and placing any bets?
I might not. I might not.
Why don't you bet on Usman?
I don't want to, though. I don't want that money, man.
Dude, the rest of this card, look, the card from top to bottom isn't bad.
Yeah, it's
for me, the pay-per-view is a little on the weak side.
Yeah.
When you're talking about your co-main event, while a good fight, I don't think this is a fucking pay-per-view co-main when you've got Macy Barber taking on Alexa Grasso.
Yeah.
I like the fight.
This is a must-win for Macy Barber.
Is that a pay-per-view co-main event for you, Paul?
I think there's fights on this card that could have been the co-main event over it.
Don't you think Jim Miller fighting
No, I don't know if even that's
Could have at least been maybe
Yeah.
the third down.
Yeah.
Would you have been
But-
mad at that?
Ultimately, this fight was canceled, but I thought the co-main event should have been Jimmy Rivera versus Pedro Munoz, but that fight got canceled because I don't know why. But yeah, there's this. Even the Kelvin Gastelum Ian Heinz fight could possibly.
How
be
was that not the co-main event?
Yeah, I don't either. Well,
Look, I'm not shitting on these two great women fighters.
Well, here's
I
the
just
thing.
don't understand when you're charging $75.
yeah, true.
You're gonna give me
True.
that. I mean, it is what it is. But who do you like in the fight? I mean, that's a tough fight. Macy Barber definitely needs.
Macy
to win.
needs a win here, so I gotta go with Macy.
She's got the power. I've got the power.
Well, and here's the thing, though, is like, I feel like Grasso is more of a veteran of the sport. You know, Macy's coming off ACL surgery
Yeah, we haven't seen her in a while now.
since Roxanne Modafferi. That's why she needs to win this fight.
Yeah.
If she wants to be anything in this division, she's got to step it up because
No, she can't have the loss to Roxanne, then the time off to injury, and then come back with another loss. That's really going to derail the Macy Barber train.
yeah, and she was on freaking skyrocketing.
Right. I mean, she's already lost the Paige
But
Van
she's
Zandt
young, too,
rivalry
though.
that she had going for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, she was trying to ride that train.
Oh yeah, she wanted that fight bad.
But that's gone now. You're right. She desperately needs the win here. It's not like her career's over, but her projection is going to be
momentum.
definitely
Yeah,
changed.
she'll
and her
lose a lot of momentum. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Oh no,
No,
I like
talk
her in the
about-
fight though.
Yeah, I like her too. Talk about someone who needs a win though.
Who dat?
Kelvin Gastelum taking on Ian Heinz. Fuck. Man, Kelvin is what's that? 3 fights in a row he's lost? 3 or 2?
I have a. For Kelvin, I love Kelvin Gastelum.
yeah.
I hate
Fuck.
it when fighters go on losing streaks like that. Fighters you support and like. He's
Yeah.
hella talented, man.
Yeah. He looks
I
like
s-
he's in a lot better shape now though.
I haven't seen him,
I was watching
but
the
he is in a.
Bedfords.
He needs to get his ship righted here with this win against Ian, who is a tough out, man.
Yeah.
Ian Heinz is no joke. That dude's
Yeah.
a legit fighter.
Coming off the Dana White Contender Series. He's had some good performances. You know what I mean? Like he's proved that he's up there in that top 10 and he belongs there. And that's what's dangerous here. Is Kelvin can't go in here thinking this is a warm up
it's not
fight
some
to
gimme
get back
fight.
on track.
I mean, well, it is, but it isn't. It's
Yeah.
a fight to get him back on track against a very tough guy.
yeah. Well, there is no
But he
easy
should win
fights.
this.
There's no easy fights at middleweight when you're
No.
talking about the top 10. There's no easy
There's not much
fights.
for easy fights in the UFC. Period. There's the degree,
Yeah.
but for him, and
top
where he's
10
at,
in any
no.
division, there's
It's
no
a
easy
tough fight.
fights. Yeah.
But he needs the win here. He should get it. He's got levels of experience above Ian right now.
Yeah.
He hits like a Mack truck. He's very sturdy.
Needs
He's
to make
very
a statement
skilled.
for sure.
And if he's coming in shape and motivated,
Yeah.
then I definitely like Kelvin with the win.
Yep, me too.
That's a great fight.
Yeah,
I expect that to be a hard out, but
I do too.
yeah, I like
So,
it. Action packed.
like we spoke about before, there was the Munoz and Rivera fight that was supposed to be on this card, that was taken off the main card. So, any
Was
one
that
of
was that a due to the?
I don't know if it was COVID or an
virus or-
injury. I'm not quite sure, but
Are they rescheduled or is it just scrapped totally?
I think
do you
it's
know?
just scrapped for now. I think they're planning on rescheduling, but I don't know if it's like set in stone yet. But my best guess would any one of these 3 fights will replace it on the main card. So originally on the prelims main event is Jim Miller taking on Bobby Green, who's just one of the more low-key, most active guys in the UFC right now.
Bobby Green.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Jim Miller. For
Both
that
of them.
matter.
Jim Miller's still racking up wins. We keep
Racking
thinking
'em
he's
up.
done, and he keeps winning. So what are
Racking
you
'em
gonna
up.
say?
Yeah, both these guys. This would be a good fight.
That should be a great fight. Bobby Green's an action-packed fighter, dude. He's gonna
Yeah.
talk shit. He's gonna go out there. He's gonna get in Jim Miller's
The
face.
last
The
thing he
is,
needs to do is take this to the ground, though.
Yeah, you
He's
don't
got to
want.
keep this on the feet.
Uh-huh. Every
Gotta.
time I say it's done for Jim Miller, he proves me wrong and
Proves
goes
me
out
wrong.
and wins in increasingly impressive fashions of
Yep.
late. So I love the fight. I like Bobby Green. I like Jim Miller. I think Miller's probably going to shock me again with the win. I'm inclined to pick Bobby, so that means Miller's going to win.
I like Bobby, and I think his striking will be the X factor if he were to win. But I just think Jim is too good at putting people in bad situations. You know what I mean? He's a little bit older, but with his age, has gained so much experience of different positions inside the cage that he's just able to pull off submissions from so many different angles and areas of either top or bottom. You know what I mean? And so I think ultimately he's going to catch Bobby in some kind of submission.
I like it too. I think that's probably going to happen, and that puts Bobby Green, at the end of a little streak he's been on.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate, but and Miller,
that's the game.
It's going to keep him in the game.
It's a game of matchups.
Yep.
I think this is kind of a bad one for Bobby.
I agree, sir.
And then you go on down the list.
Who do we got next?
Do think this fight was ultimately canceled a few weeks ago, so we're getting it back. We got Bilal Muhammad taking on Diego Lima.
Oh yes, finally.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think this could even end up onto the main card because this is a great fight.
This is a great fight. That's a tough fight. These are both a couple of bangers right here. Lima's tough.
2 established names in the UFC.
Yeah.
Both guys tough as fucking nails.
I like it a lot. That's what I mean. This card's good as a whole. It's just the pay-per-view side's a little light.
Yeah, I think it's mixed up a little. I think it's and maybe that's just what it is on the website because there's been multiple times where we've gone on the website and then they mix and match the card when it comes to the actual production.
The UFC's website is probably the worst website of a major MMA organization or possibly
major
sports
league in general.
Period. It's not updated ever. And
the rankings are flawed.
There's nothing good about and everything that needs to be done to fix it is super minor. Like you could hire some fucking kid and pay a minimum wage. You could hire somebody on Odesk from some other country and pay the minimum wage and they could fix it fine. There's no excuse for the UFC. This is low level work here.
Yeah.
But anyways, maybe it's not this bout order like you said, but that's a good fight. Bilal Muhammad, Diego Lima.
Muhammad takes it by decision.
You think so? By decision.
Yep, I like Bilal. I believe in him.
I like Diego Lima here. Bilal is tough. He's a riot on social media.
2 mega gyms going head to head. Rufus Sport, and then Lima's over at fucking in Florida, right?
His brother trains out of the same camp
top
with
team?
him, doesn't he?
Yeah. Aren't they both in top team though?
I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
I like Lima here.
Yeah,
I like a bit of a resurgence.
And then another fight.
What's another fight?
Another fight. UFC Fight Pass prelim main event, which doesn't make any sense to me because these guys are established names. I would think maybe not to the casual, but to the UFC, I would believe. So we got Ricky Simone taking on Brian Kelleher.
Yeah, that's a fight right there.
Like that's a fucking scrap right there.
That's a fight. Why?
That should at least be on like the prelims, like
I
the
guess
regular
they're trying to
prelims.
big up these little. Everything
Fight
is its
Pass
mini
prelims.
card. It's the Fight Pass main event.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one's in the obviously no one's in the arena, but even in these ones back in the day, it'd be nobody's in the arena. It's kind of just it was the pandemic before the pandemic.
Right.
Which is fucked up because these guys are fucking monsters.
Yeah, this is a great bout.
Yeah.
Really fun fight here. This is going to be filled with a lot of action. I mean,
I think go either way.
I don't know who to pick. There's a coin toss.
Both guys have shown the ability to get in there and get finishes.
I expect to be fully entertained, though, possibly for a full 3 rounds.
I think Kelleher knocks him out.
He's tough, man. He's got hands.
Kelleher has got. He's another one of those guys though that like he either is putting on some kind of like blow the roof off the joint, fucking knock you out or submission, or he loses the decision. You know, like he tends to look for that kill so much that he's like perfect example is when he fought who was it? Sun Tao, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just got outmatched completely.
Yeah.
And and so I feel like he's gonna go in there and try to rip Ricky Simone's head off. And it's gonna come down to how he responds.
Well,
is he still rocking the mullet?
Simone?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
It's
He's
hard to
got the
tell because
dragon
the
tail
UFC
mullet.
puts up old-ass photos, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I haven't seen anything with him here in the past week or two to know, but
Yeah.
it looks like he is from any
Pictures.
pictures I've seen online, but who knows how current those
He's
are.
got the crazy mullet.
He does, though. He does. He don't fuck around with that.
They're ridiculous.
That shit is badass. If you're into mullets.
Well, I think that about wraps up that
That's
card.
gonna be a good weekend. That's gonna be a
It's
good
gonna be
card
a good
overall,
weekend.
man.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to it. And as February rolls out, we're gonna get some more boxing news here. You know, we've had a bit of stirrings and possible fight announcements we'll be able to talk about on future shows.
Well, and we've also had a lot of fights that were once held up are starting to become a little bit more clear. Now we got, like we talked about a little bit last week, with the whole Fury Josh was finally on track, and you know we got Usyk and I can't remember who's
Is it
fighting.
Palmer, I think, or somebody?
Someone
I
might.
can't remember his name. But anyways, for the interim title.
Yeah, you got Dylan White taking on Deontay Wilder. You got things are moving, you know, and ultimately, that's all you can ask for in this pandemic is for fucking fights to happen and divisions to keep it moving.
Yes, sir. That winds us down for today's episode.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you're new to the show, you can find the podcast on all your major podcast outlets, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Podcast Bay, Deezer, everything else. We got video on YouTube. We're on WBUZ 95, radio.net, and the Orange Radio app. And we've taken the time and put all of this stuff in one handy location. Paul, where is it at?
SWATMMA.com, or you can head over there, click the gear button, support the podcast, and buy some merch, motherfuckers.
See you next week.
Peace.
Later.